Will do. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining today. This is just, it won't take too much of your time, but just wanted to go through the 18-19 evaluation that we received from Meta Associates. Just to give you an update too, there's two phases of reviewers apparently at the USDE level. And so we've submitted it, and the first reviewer, which is Dr. Chris Hill, he's kind of their statistician type person, looks at the data. He's reviewed it and moved it on to their leadership team. So as of last week, when he touched base with me about it, it's at the leadership team reviewer 2 level. So hopefully we can get that approved and move on with life, right? Okay, so have you all had a chance to look through it, or do we need to talk? Is there certain areas that you had questions on, or if not, I was just going to kind of touch on a couple of pages that I had, and then that we're going to focus on and things like that for this upcoming school year, especially the recommendations by the evaluator. There's 7 things there, and so Gloria was wanting us to focus as a group on those things. So let's get started. I don't know, do you all have a copy of it in front of you, or do you need me to pull up a share screen? What would be helpful?
Would you send share screen?
Share screen? Okay. All right, let's see. Share screen. I have to talk to myself when I do it. Share. Okay, so should have it. Okay, can you all see the document? Just making sure it's on your end. Okay, so I'm gonna scooch up to the top. Here's what it looks like when you find it, and I'll show you where it is on our website as well. So that way, and all of our documents will be where I'm going to take you on our website as well. But I'll do that at the end so you can see. So here's the cover, nice color and everything. So it's recognizable for you guys. Let's touch on, let me see what my first one was. Page 2. It starts out with a chart for, now of course this was 18-19 for this evaluation, so let's remember that. So this chart here was the 18-19 MPOs. And as I touched base with you guys on our last meeting, the MPOs were updated and talked through to give them, make them be more realistic and more attainable for us, and have the, we were right under some of them that we got no's on. So we kind of dropped some of those a little bit to make them more attainable for us for the next school year of data, which will be 19-20 for state evaluation. The state as a whole has a contract with Meta Associates to help us, so there'll be some consistency there. This is kind of this would be our baseline with them as far as the order of things and the data needed and things like that. So hopefully with the same evaluator for a period of years, I think it's for 3 years, that will have some, like I say, consistency of what we're asking for. It's the same thing what is being what's asked for us, and some alignment there. So that'll help out with things. So as we touched base, we kind of looked at this one briefly at our last meeting, Zoom meeting that we had. But I just wanted to say that, again, that the ones that we received no's on, which were 1A, 1B, 2A, those 3, we did some adjustments on those and made it, like I said, more attainable for our programs. And the goals, the MPOs, new MPOs, were not finalized yet. We're still working on those with Meta Associates. But, you know, those will be released to you obviously soon, because you need to know what you're shooting for the this year and things like that. But anyways, just want to touch base on that one again. And then for the new or fairly new directors on page 10, just to give a reminder of the cycle, which is kind of a cool little graph there, of continuous improvement, and why we do what we do. And in the middle, there's the needs assessment, service delivery plan, program evaluation, and how all three of those go hand in hand and are feeding off of each other at all times. So that was just kind of a neat graphic I thought would be, especially for the newer directors and recruiters, something that you may want to point out in your team meetings and teacher meetings, staff meetings, that would catch their eye, and maybe something that they can, because sometimes you do evaluations and all these reports and the data and you're like, I'm just turning this in just to turn it in. But if you see why and how it all works together, that may make sense to them, to your staff. On 12, there's some implementation evaluation results. And so this MEP services graph, exhibit 4, is just kind of interesting to look at. The math and science, social studies were kind of the top hitters there, whereas reading was a little bit down the chart. So that was kind of interesting for us to look at and think why, and things like that. So Meta did this graph here for us as to what the services are. And remember, especially for, again, speaking to the newer people that are on board, the data entered into MIS 2000, especially under the MEP services, are things that are paid for with MEP services, is what the evaluator is looking for when they pull the information for these evaluation and for their reports that we have to turn into the feds. Which again, we touched base on that, our last meeting as well, but just a reminder, some of them weren't on the call last time. So that tab and that information that you enter into MIS 2000 is very critical and important. As you're internally reviewing your information, from the data entry person, and then you have 1 or 2 reviewers before it's sent to us at your local level. Just to remember, to look things over really well, make sure things are filled out, make sure it makes sense, make sure the family story, because again, like I said last time, we don't know the families, but you guys do. You know that so-and-so is cousin with so-and-so and they live together and they all go to Michigan for cherry picking or whatever. Well, we may not know that. So if make sure in the comments, if there's some extra detail there that would make their story of what we're reading make sense, or whatever date-wise, or why they're working 1 or 2 days somewhere, or whatever. Again, you guys know the story, but when it gets up here, to make it make sense, if there's extra detail needed in comments, that'd be great thing to remember. And let's see. On page 37 is where we're going to focus again on this year, which are the recommendations. Sorry, this is scrolling fast for your eyes, but I'm trying to get down there and not waste your time here. There we go. Evaluator recommendations. So there's 7 of them. Provide and analyze the results of academic assessments aligned to MEP instructional services. And continue family engagement efforts with specific things on how to navigate school system and support children's learning from home. So within the internal, your local district family engagement meetings that you have, your PAC meetings that you have, maybe those are some things that you, number 2, that you could focus on if you see that that's a need. Also, the evaluator likes seeing that you took a needs assessment or needs survey with your parents to see what kind of topics and subjects and things that would help them. Maybe these things would help them, but maybe you're good with those things, and they can navigate your system and know exactly what's going on. And especially with this COVID thing going on, coming around this next school year, support children's learning at home, may look different than it has in the past. And we kind of started at the end of last year, but it looks like it would be, continued somewhat. And learning is just gonna be different until this COVID thing passes. So be sure, in other words, be sure with your meetings, your PAC meetings and other staff meetings and things like that, where you're turning in, sign-in sheets and agendas and yada yada. Just maybe be specific on what you guys talk about on your subjects and things like that of what you're talking about. If you take staff surveys or family surveys to get feedback, or an evaluation type deal, to those groups at the end, a professional development or a family meeting. Be sure to turn those in so you can have some good data to help support. And I know this summer obviously is kind of down the drain somewhat, or very, very different than the past. We have not heard from the USDE, and I'm just repeating this from our last meeting because there were some that missed the last meeting, but what the state directors nationally have asked the USDE is not to look for our numbers for summer from this because of COVID this summer, but look at the previous summer because that really doubles basically the count. It really bolsters summer school was the thing to focus on because it really bolsters our state allocations. And since ours dropped by half for this next school year, that would really help if they would look at previous school years, because there's some of you, your local superintendents have decided not to have summer services for various reasons, but mainly the COVID issue. So hopefully we'll hear back soon on that. I'll let you all know when we hear back on that issue, just let you know that that's out there. So 4 is review and make adjustments to procedures and practices for providing services to OSY. So out of school youth is just generally across the board is kind of fairly something that all the programs need to focus on. But again, like we talked about in our last meeting too, it's kind of a hard group to go after because sometimes there's some limitations within your own district on recruitment of these certain group where you can't, let's say, go to a farmer or a field or whatever. There may be some restrictions there within your own LEA on travel or whatever. But that just to kind of let you know that is or will be a focus. So we're going to be kind of providing some professional development with that as a focus, maybe some new ideas or fresh ideas of how to reach that group. So if you all have some success with this group, the subgroup OSY, that maybe you could share some best practices or some ideas of how you've reached and been successful that we could share with everyone out. Maybe our next meeting, we could take a minute to speak to that if you have any good ideas for OSY. But in general, we're seeing that group, it isn't being focused on or recruited as much as kids just coming in to do regular recruitment or regular enrollment, I should say, at the district, and then you're catching them then. But that wouldn't necessarily be OSY students. And then also maybe possibly thinking again, because wanting to get our numbers up and things like that, so that would affect our allocation as a whole. Not only focusing on summer school and things like that, but with OSY, thinking, and again, it may depend on your local determination from your local superintendent, but the recruiters may possibly, you know, if it's allowable within your own district, have a flexible type schedule where they're working maybe not every day, but sometimes in the evenings, weekends, those types of things to be able to catch OSY when they're off work. Um, some people will do some people, like, for instance, go to a farm or meet them at the laundromat or whatever, and do a lesson kind of wherever they are. But again, I know the realities of that may or may not be doable with your own superintendent or own LEA restrictions. So that's something that we may need to focus on and try to think outside the box and work with what's allowable, or talk with maybe superintendents and things like that to see if we could, I don't know, restructure or something like that, possibly the recruiter's schedule, or maybe 3 days a week or 2 days a week, or whatever works with whatever we can figure out there. So it's kind of a hard subgroup, like I say, to reach for everybody, just in general. But if you have some tips or best practices and you guys are shining stars with OSYs and you know how to reach them and get them and recruit them well, then please share your success with everyone. 5, provide training regarding the documentation of reading and math instruction and make adjustments to MPOs related to the scope of migrant reading and math instruction. So just alignment of, I guess they're looking for, and the evaluators on this one, alignment of what's being taught or tested on in the classroom and the deficiencies there is what's being taught and reinforced and tutored on in the after school care or the summer school or whatever, however the migrant services are being provided for reading and math, that there's some kind of alignment there, that what is being shown as a deficiency in the classroom is being helped with migrant funds. Number 6, review the S2P considering the support services needs of migratory children. So again, focusing on the academic standards that all children are expected to meet, and making sure that there's some alignment with what's needed, the child needing, let's see, comprehension. But in migrants, and they're enrolled in the migrant services, let's say for after school tutoring. So the focus, should be at least somewhat on the comprehension. So that way there's some alignment there. If you all have some kind of proof or something that we could turn in to demonstrate this to the evaluator, that'd be awesome. Even if it's just something simple as an email between the classroom teacher and the migrant tutor, as to maybe, and if you need me to, I can come up with some kind of template form thing, so that way, and we can all work on it together. If that would help. I know maybe you already have something like that. But that's just an idea of how to show alignment that the deficiency is being met, or being tried to be met in the micro program. And the last thing is provide additional focus on IB&R, with additional focus on identifying OSY. So again, that is kind of the second point that the evaluator pointed out as far as OSY goes. So those are the things that we're going to focus on. And when we say focus, I mean provide professional development on these 7 things throughout the school year. And if needed, like I say, if there's some forms or templates or things like that that need to be created to help demonstrate these 7 things, then I'll be glad to do that for everyone, and we'll work on all these 7 things together. Okay, and I think that was it. The only thing at the end there that they have is the FSY, and which we all know. And the FSY will be updated to reflect the new NPOs when they're finalized from Meta Associates. And then they have the staff survey. So that's the evaluation as a whole. Just kind of walking through just a couple of pages. Does anybody have any feedback or anything for what we've talked about? Or everything kind of good and kind of on the same page as far as what to focus on for this year? Or okay, I'm assuming no news is good news, I guess. But anyways, I just wanted to take a second. Didn't want to honor your time and everything. I know I'm super busy. About let's see. Let me stop screen share, and I'm going to go over for anybody that's new or fairly new, or go over to let me turn that back on. Let me go over to our website page, and I'll show you where the document is that we just went over, as well as some other things. Let's see here. Okay, so under this is the the main homepage for the State Department of Education. So where our page is, in case you don't know, under services, and then there's federal programs. Let's get this thing over so I can see. Okay. So what you'll do is you'll go to scroll down a little bit, and we're Title I, Part C is migrant funds. So that's under Title I, Part C, and here's our page. So, so what you'll do is you'll just scroll down. There's different titles, different headings, I should say. Law and guidance. There are the top one. Forms and tools. The very top thing is the evaluation report that we just went over together. And then there's a user guide for anybody that's new on MIS 2000. The surveys, if you need them for English and Spanish when you have your PAC meetings, are here. And I would suggest doing, some kind of especially at your very first meeting, your PAC meeting, get some kind of information together or some ideas or brainstorming ideas from your families, and get some ideas for your local meetings of things that they're, like I say, things that they're interested in, things that they want to know about, with a focus on academics, of course, but you could really get some good feedback from them. Possibly some ideas. Because sometimes you kind of do the same old, and it may not be exactly what's needed, possibly with your family dynamics changing and new people coming in. So there's all kinds of, there's the old assessment and service delivery plan from 2017, which is our most current one. However, this next school year we'll be doing a new needs assessment. And the following year would be the service delivery. The service delivery plans next year, the following would be the needs assessment. So those will be updated, but those are the most current. And then we have the new evaluation at the top of this section that we just did. Anyways, so the next thing is webinars, which this one will be under there as well. So you can, if you missed it or you thought, oh, what did we say about that? You can always go back and see either the PowerPoint or the webinar. And then there's some general resources. I try to put under there some, if we, like Oro Development Corporation, their HEP program and things like that. Some are recruiting ideas. When we had one of our speakers talked about the health center map. So things like that, where there's some community resource information, that's where this would be, under resources. So that's your page. That's your Title I Part C migrant page. Hopefully that's helpful for you all. And I'm going to stop share. And do we have any questions or anything about what we went over or discussed, or if everybody's good? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop the recording now.